the North American hemisphere.
We're talking about El Nino because NASA says that satellite images
I think she might be referring to this one, but I'm not sure.
show that this year's El Nino could rival the one of 1997, 1998 that killed 23,000 people worldwide. So what does that mean for us? It means the big snow that we're having in the Midwest. What else will it mean?
Well, it means the big snow we're having in the Midwest. It means the droughts we're seeing in Central America.
Really? Because I could have sworn it meant flooding before. Rain.
Well, in Pajaro, the arrival of El Nino means flooding. Back in 1995, El Nino-induced rainfall caused the Pajaro River to flood, resulting in $50 million in damages.
Wet all over.
Wet all over.
I mean, it was just a big, muddy mess.
Now let's look at some completely unrelated coverage about the Pacific Blob from 2015 and 2019-2020.
Something scientists call the blob could be the drought buster California's been waiting for. As Carter Evans reports, the blob may be coming, but not soon enough.
Hot, dry weather fueled a nearly 1,000-acre fire east of Los Angeles that forced hundreds from their homes. This morning, evacuation orders were lifted, with cooler weather on the way. And for parts Southern California, an even more dramatic change could be coming, says NASA climatologist Josh Willis.
We're watching a very big blob of warm water in the Central Pacific right now, and it's headed our way.
Why a blob?
We would call that a temperature anomaly back when I was in grad school, but I think blob has a better ring to it.
It's over at his place. You gotta come now.
Now, wait a minute, Steve. Tell us what happened.
Well, I'm trying to tell you. Now, this thing had killed the doc.
What was it? Stop with it, kid. But it's kind of like a mass that keeps getting bigger and bigger.
When the drought began in 2011, the warm water was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But over the last few years, that began to change, as the blob of warm water shifted to where it is now along the west coast. Scientists cannot say for sure if the change in water temperature will cause a wet winter pattern known as El Nino, which is capable of producing torrential downpours.
We were told that last winter we were going to get a big El Nino and perhaps very rainy weather.
Well, El Nino from last year turned out to be El Wimpo.
But all signs suggest the coastal water warming trend will continue, and the impact is already visible here. Along the California coast, where malnourished sea lions washed ashore all winter as the fish they feed on headed out to sea in search of cooler water.
Very often, it's the biology that has the first indication that the climate is about to change.
And perhaps finally put an end to what seems like an endless drought. Carter Evans, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And the impact is already visible here. Along the California coast, where malnourished sea lions washed ashore all winter.
A marine heat wave out in the Pacific resembles something that happened before, right around this time in 2015. KPI X5's Emily Turner on the potential consequences in the water and on shore.
About 4 years ago, WildCare says they saw a massive influx of seabirds, and considering what's happening in the Pacific Ocean now, they're worried that's going to happen again. Offshore in the cool blue waters of the Pacific is a marine heat wave, scientists say. It mimics a similar phenomenon from 4 years ago that wreaked havoc on the ocean's ecosystems. We're looking at a lot of really bad things that could happen in the ocean. For one, there could be a lot of fish die off, and that has ramifications throughout the food web. We saw sea lions dead and starving on beaches. The liquid heat wave hasn't quite reached our shores, but scientists say it's slated to. And with temperatures about 7 degrees warmer than average, it could be just as deadly and far-reaching as last time.
It's our whole ecosystem, and if tourism and fisheries are taken into account, it's a big chunk of our economy, and it also impacts our weather.
The oceans are showing signs of these extreme temperature events all around the world. We're talking about a huge area of much warmer than normal surface temperatures over the Northeast Pacific Ocean. It's about 3 times the size of the state of Alaska. The ocean is a critical part of the climate system, and it's changing.
Every one of you watching this screen, look out. Because soon, very soon, the most horrifying monster menace ever conceived will be Who's the Blob?
Starring Steve McQueen and a cast of exciting young people.
But way out there in the ocean, something is brewing, and scientists don't know how bad it will get. We all know about heat waves on land. We live through them. Sometimes they last for a couple of days. But the last time this happened in the Pacific Ocean, it lasted for 3 years. Scientists called it the blob. It even has its own Wikipedia page. And now it's threatening to happen again. Over the last century, the average ocean temperature has slowly risen about 1.5 degrees. But now, 1,000 miles offshore and a little bit north of Hawaii, there's a part of the Pacific that's at least 7 degrees warmer than normal. Though it's hard to pinpoint a single cause, scientists say nature's air conditioning seems to be broken. The Arctic is especially warm again this summer. summer, and sea ice is very scarce. So we've got big changes going on around the whole planet.
That warm water sets off a chain reaction. First, it keeps the nutrients on the ocean floor from rising to the surface, and that causes plankton to die off. Then the fish that eat the plankton have to come closer to shore to find it. Then, you guessed it, the big animals that eat those fish, well, they have to come chasing after them, and that's when we find them washed up here on the beach.
In the last marine heat wave, California's sea lions were among the hardest hit. Lots of pups were starving and abandoned by their moms, and adult sea lions also suffered a lot of mortality in those years.
Some even got stranded in harbors. With all that competition, birds started going hungry too, and the ocean's biggest animals encountered another problem.
A spike in whale entanglements in fishing gear, especially Dungeness crab fishing gear.
In 2016, some 70 whales got caught up in fishing gear, but that wasn't the only challenge the crab fishery faced. That same year, crab season was on hold for months because of toxic algae that made the crabs poisonous to humans. Again, scientists blamed the unusually warm water. Here on the coast, the impact of this new blob has seemed pleasant so far. There are plenty of fish to catch and great swimming conditions.
There have been a number of days where you don't need a wetsuit this summer.
And nobody knows how long this marine heat wave will last. But if it persists, we can expect all the bad stuff to happen again.
When you hear somebody say, we have one climate, one atmosphere, it's really true. And it's all connected.
And the impact is already visible here, along the California coast where malnourished sea lions washed ashore all winter.
They do use oil and other things within the plant, but that's a big explosion. I very strongly suspect that's not an actual nuclear explosion in the sense the nuclear materials were involved in that. The issue is that if that's damaged the containment, the nuclear materials may be able to escape from that.
In 1992, a cargo ship carrying bath toys got caught in a storm. Shipping containers washed overboard, and the waves swept 28,000 rubber ducks and other toys into the North Pacific. But they didn't stick together. Quite the opposite. The ducks have since washed up all over the world, and researchers have used their paths to chart a better understanding of ocean currents. Unlike surface currents, deep ocean currents are driven primarily by changes in the density of seawater. As water moves towards the North Pole, it gets colder. It also has a higher concentration of salt, because the ice crystals that form trap water while leaving salt behind. This cold, salty water is more dense, so it sinks, and warmer surface water takes its place, setting up a vertical current called thermohaline circulation. Thermohaline circulation of deep water and wind-driven surface currents combine to form a winding loop called the global conveyor belt. As water moves from the depths of the ocean to the surface, it carries nutrients that nourish the microorganisms which form the base of many ocean food chains. The global conveyor belt is the longest current in the world, snaking all around the globe, but it only moves a few centimeters per second. It could take a drop of water 1,000 years to make the full trip. However, rising sea temperatures are causing the conveyor belt to seemingly slow down. Models show this causing havoc with weather systems on both sides of the Atlantic, and no one knows what would happen if it continues to slow, or if it stopped altogether. The only way we'll be able to forecast correctly and prepare accordingly will be to continue to study currents and the powerful forces that shape them.
Okay, so what happened? What does ocean currents and El Nino and the Pacific blob have to do with all this in Fukushima? Basically, after Fukushima blew, all the radioactive particles, 600 tons of plutonium and MOX fuel, got dumped into the ocean, either during the initial explosion or the days after. It got washed out into the ocean. Got eaten up by all the creatures, all the animals, and it landed on beaches. It took a couple months, even over a year, but it eventually arrived, and it ended up in people's pockets and in people's stomachs, and mostly in the animals. But let's have a moment of silence, and let's listen to this animal. record, I know exactly why they call it The Blob. Here's a scene from the newer version of The Blob.
Doctor, come in here quickly.
I'm with a patient.
There's a man dying in here. Hurry!
Excuse me a moment. Is this the hand injury? What is this?
Thing on his hand.
Nurse!
Sheriff's Department.
Get me the sheriff. It's an emergency.
Geller speaking.
Sheriff, this is Paul Taylor.
Oh, what's wrong?
And the impact is already visible here, along the California coast where malnourished sea lions washed ashore all winter.
Now that we've embarked on this rough journey, I would like to take another moment for a prayer. The golden gates of hell stay open night and day. Smooth is the descent and easy the way. Wicked hearts fill minds with twisted words, tongues say. By their actions they are judged. Still the complicit do not budge. While demons all around are fighting for control. The devil may take my life, but it will never take my soul. Amen. Now I think we should take a few minutes and just review, look back, remember the billions and billions of sea creatures that died while you were asleep in the last 10 years. While you were asleep.